Now the last two presentations, we're going to have Russell Bernstein, who is the founder of Global Team Players Foundation. I always want to shorten it. I'm sorry, Russell. And then we're going to get to Dr. Gil Greer, who is all the way from New Zealand, and with great thanks for hanging in there through this whole afternoon. Russell, please tell us about your work.
Okay. How much do I have left?
10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. My name is Russell Bernstein, and I'm the Executive Director and founder of Global Team Players Foundation, or GTP, we use for short. First of all, I would like to express how big of an honor it is to be speaking in front of you today. The first action of GTP was attending the ESOC conference in February of 2011, literally upon landing from Korea, where I had lived for the previous 2 years. Not only was I returning to the US to start a new life, but in a way, I was beginning training necessary for the moment we're sharing together now. Ironically, considering the timing, this is kind of like my Olympic qualifier and you guys are the judges. I hope after you've had a chance to listen to my ideas, you give me a 10, or maybe a 9.9. Humbly speaking, I realize that this is my first time, but I am going to make some mistakes. I'll most definitely make more than one statement that makes me look stupid because I haven't had time to research something. If so, please let me know. I want to learn more. However, offending someone or all of you fears me the most. Please know that I'm really new to this. If I say something in a way that may shock you, it is my intention to give feedback to the United Nations in as constructive as a way as I know how. So please forgive me if I come across too straightforward. Before I begin, I'd like to take a few moments to thank a few individuals for supporting me in this training. GTP's trustees, Jeff Nunziata, Rebecca French, GTP's administrative volunteers, our board advisors, Linda Toff, Richard Jordan, Howard Broadwin, Andrew Clark, Stephanie Wagstaff, Mallory Cornier, Derek Reese, Reka Day, and our 3 unpublished advisors. Thank you for being there for me. Without your trust and support, this organization would not have survived. We did this as a team, and I hope we continue to be a team in the long term. So, who is GTP? Global Team Players Foundation empowers athletes to engage the community in philanthropy. We coordinate scholarships, grants, loans, and social impact bonds for athletes who volunteer in the community. Our mission is to be a public foundation for athletic, professional, and social development. We believe that by empowering athletes to drive change, social impact will be much greater. As for GTP's direct impact, we believe that the actions that the athletes take to engage the community in philanthropy will have the greatest impact on 1, gender equality in secondary schools, and 2, secondary school enrollment ratios. So I was invited here today by Richard Jordan, the chairman of the NGO committee for UN Sport and also a board advisor to GTP, to give a few recommendations to the UN for sustainable actions to take regarding sport development and peace. But before I get into the detail of each, here they are. The first one is we would like to see UNICEF work with the UNOSDP to incorporate sport-related components, or a component, or questions, or a question in the mixed surveys. The second one, we would like to see UN agencies guide sustainable social impact through smaller sports-related projects created and led by many more competing youth. The third suggestion, and the last one, UN agencies should focus more on research and less on the marketing and less on the quote-unquote leading by example with unique one-off projects that we've seen, and focus more on the governmental relationships that they have and to create then incentives for corporate partners to adopt UN prioritized causes on an ongoing basis. So in the first one, with UNICEF and the UNOSDP working together on the mixed surveys, just the summary, for those of you who don't know, I think probably everyone in here actually knows. But the mixed surveys are basically a massive global census. The data is used to monitor our progress towards achieving the Millennium Development Goals, which each have unique targets based on the analysis made from the data collected in those surveys. The same data can be analyzed with an added ability to compare sports to non-sports. So all the same data can be analyzed, and you can ask a question, I don't know what it is, maybe is that kid involved in sports? Is that kid not involved in sports? Just as simple as that, and have all the same data analyzed and compared that way. So to illustrate an example of what we could see from this, perhaps we could see something along the lines of in gender equality in secondary school, in country Z, you compare schools with athletic programs to schools without athletic programs. The ones with athletic programs may have better gender equality than the schools without athletic programs could receive funding for athletic programs on the condition that they institute gender equal policies. This analysis can be shared with corporate partners to help them find opportunities to build both goodwill and revenue. So again, the same example, the UN sends the identified need to corporate partners who fund a social impact bond for the development of athletic programs in a specified set of schools needing to change policies. Funding for the athletic associations to govern them would also be interesting to organizations like the NCAA, who has an interest in the standardization of sports policies across nations. The NCAA, for example, could create a branch in that country and thus set up to receive more membership revenue at some time in the future, since those sports programs generate revenue and support local economies through the agglomeration that occurs. So the second recommendation to the United Nations is to guide smaller projects on many more and not lead large projects. On the UNOSDP website, it features their sport-related activities of the 26 UN agencies, and upon looking at them, what I noticed is that each of the agency's sport-related projects vary significantly in terms of quantity, scope, and quality. Some of the organizations in their sport-related projects, their quality is super awesome. They're involved with different major sport organizations like Barceloneta in Barcelona, and on top of that Nike, but then some of the other ones are just like we presented here today, and that's it. But where they don't differ very much is duration, the timeline of the project. None of the projects are ongoing. This is likely, I'm speculating here, but maybe it's because of internal UN politics among people and competition over funds and leadership over projects. However, the best ideas come from many impacting many. And isn't that the goal in the first place? To get many people impacting many people? Well, the UN is in a position to be a great guide, and it's great at executing a project, but the projects are limited in impact and sustainability because of the individual leading the effort is driven by doing the project itself. Scholarships, grants, loans, and social impact bonds are easy to administer, and it conserves a significant amount of management resources, and the effort can be duplicated very easily, and processes can be established and learned. Then we can receive a bigger and wider impact through many. I'm almost done. The third one. The third one is summarized as the UN empowering corporations to adopt a UN-related cause. So, again, each of the projects that I saw on the UNOSDP website, it seemed to take more of a lead-by-example approach, and they're largely just one-off. And that's like one-off, like, one every couple years or one every year kind of thing. And the ambassadors, the UN ambassadors that we have, We have these very famous athletes that represent unique UN causes, but what do they really do? Are they named an ambassador because of their involvement in one project of a massive scale several years ago, and then they retain their title? That's fine, but that message of their relationship to the UN needs to be communicated effectively and regularly for all of this to be sustainable. So why do professional athletes, sports teams, federations, and why don't professional athletes, sports teams, federations, and associations adopt specific UN-related causes? Why do they adopt specific causes in general? Is it really because there's a match between their team and the cause that they're representing? For example, Oregon University's football team, they did that pink uniform thing last year with for cancer research. Was there really a match there? I mean, the cancer research fund that they were raising money for was started by a basketball coach from North Carolina. And it was her cancer research fund. And they did it with Nike. So what's really at play in that one? It doesn't really make sense. It was really cool, it was really effective, it got a lot of attention, but it doesn't really quite make sense. An example of an organization where it makes sense is the NFHS, which is the NCAA equivalent for high school athletic associations. They have a foundation that supports equipment safety in sports. That makes sense, but it's a little boring. So why do they adopt these things? Is it because those in highly paid marketing roles are just a lot better at marketing? Or is it because someone is actually paid for their name and likeness to be used in conjunction with the cause? So let's take a look at what the UN is really good at again. Research and governmental relationships. The UN could easily leverage those two things if they focused on it exclusively to create incentives for corporate partners to adopt UN prioritized causes on an ongoing basis. Then the causes could be sustainable because they're being promoted by a profit-minded organization. Thank you.
Thanks for very specific recommendations and how we can strengthen.
I forgot about the sports tourism part of it.
Oh, don't worry about it. You're okay.
Okay.
You're okay. Because actually, what you've done is you've generated a lot of really good thought in terms of how the UN can improve its delivery mechanisms, and how everybody should really think through relationships and the global partnerships for development into very specific, not just sort of superficial, but very deep, lasting relationships. So you've done your job, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.